Okay, today I'm going to show you how to make a little bit more complicated recipe that I only use once in a while, special occasions, or when we pull this one out. I call it blueberry crisp, but this little guy calls it what?
Blueberry pie.
Blueberry pie. It sort of is because there's like a crust on the bottom. And why in the world am I making this today?
Oh, 'cause it's my birthday.
It is your birthday. You're turning 8. Well, you are 8 years old today, right? In a few more hours. Okay, so he's going to help me make this special blueberry pie. Okay, so we definitely have more ingredients than I usually use, but again, this is a special occasion, still totally healthy, whole foods. I always try to use fresh blueberries, but right now blueberries are literally ridiculously priced. A tiny little amount is like $5. It would cost us near $100 to make this right now. I make a big batch of this now because the boys just eat it up so quickly. They love it. But we used to do half a batch of this. So I need 4 pounds of blueberries because I'm making the big batch. You'd need 2 pounds if you're making a smaller pan. And for the first time ever, I'm going to try using frozen blueberries that I'm going to thaw in the microwave. So I actually need 1 full bag from Walmart, which is a 3-pound bag, and a little bit more that I have left over from Costco. We need cinnamon, rolled oats. We need pitted dates. Actually, 2 bags of these because we're, again, making a big batch. Some vanilla, ground flaxseed. Optionally, you can also just use more oats if you want. Measuring cups, a baking pan, parchment paper, and a rolling pin, as well as a food processor. So as our very first step, before we get working on the crust here, I'm going to actually thaw the 4 pounds of blueberries I'm going to need. Often what we've done when the fresh blueberries haven't been available or they're just ridiculously priced or something like that, we've actually made this with apples instead. I think one year we even did peaches, and that tastes good too. But he said he was willing to try the frozen blueberries. I think it'll be a little bit runnier, of course, but I think it's going to work out okay. So we're going to go ahead and measure that out, 4 pounds, and then thaw that, and we'll be back to make the crust. Okay, so I'm thawing the blueberries right now, and I've measured out 10 ounces. I use quite a lot of dates now. I've adjusted this recipe many times for this big batch. You could certainly decrease it, and I have another crumble recipe that I don't use any dates. So if you're trying to reverse disease, this is probably not the best recipe for you, or really as an occasional treat. But for us and for our kids, it's wonderful. It's great. So 10 ounces of dates. What I did is I just am actually using the cheapies from the pitted dates from Walmart. They're just Deglette Newers, I think. Not the big, nice, juicy medules. For this, they work absolutely fine. I'm going to actually soak them in the microwave. I'll show you that in a second. So, but I do find, even though it says pitted, I've occasionally had a pit in them, and then it wrecks the whole batch because it like gets all basically smashed up into sharp shards in your food processor. So it's totally worth it to me. We just spent a few minutes just popping each one. There were no seeds this time, but sometimes there are some pits. So did that. I also measured out 3.5 ounces. Let me double check that that's right. 3 ounces. Sorry. 3 ounces of ground flaxseed. Again, you could replace that with more rolled oats if you want. That's totally fine. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as the microwave is done here with the blueberries that are thawing, I pour some vanilla in here. I don't measure that. Maybe about like 2 teaspoons or so. I used to not add this, but I love vanilla in anything baked. It usually just tastes so good. Then I'm going to completely top this with water so that these are all soaked. I'll probably pack them down a little. And then I'm going to microwave it for 1 minute. That'll soften them up, and then I'm actually going to reserve that liquid because I will use a little bit to get things moist enough in the food processor. So I'm going to go fill this with water and go microwave it for a minute. We'll be back. Okay, so what we're going to do now is start preparing our dry ingredients for the crust. So Ari, can you measure in 3.5 cups, okay? So how many of these half cups is it going to take to make 1 cup?
Well, I think 2.
Right, 2 of them, right? So we actually need 7 of those, okay? We need 7 of those half cups. We'll count them together. And then we're going to also throw this ground flaxseed. This is a nice big food processor. So I'm going to throw that in there. Yep, there's one. Okay. Oops, look, I think you missed. Okay. 1, 2. We should probably count out loud so we don't mess it up. I always lose count if I do it in my head. 3. Okay, and I'm also going to measure in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. I do measure this so it's not too strong. 4. Is that 4?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to do a little more because this is the end of it. 5. Make sure they're nice and full. You can always add more oats though if we find it too wet. 6. So this particular recipe, I'm going to end up using some of this for a crust and some of it for a crumble. There's the blueberries again. And 7. We have some oats falling on the floor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's okay. It's pretty hard. It's pretty hard. It's okay. Okay, that's how baking is, right? Okay, so I'm going to go get my dates and then we're going to process this up. And actually what I'm going to do is before I add the dates, I'm going to just mildly process this just for a second so that the oats are already a tiny bit, here, just pulse it, a tiny bit ground. And I find that mix is better then. Okay, so let's go get our dates. Okay, so I have my softened dates and the water's still in here because I'm going to keep that for now. Ari, could you preheat the oven to 350? Not 375, which we usually do, but 350, okay? So we're just going to put these dates in because I want to reserve this liquid. I sometimes just drain it into a bowl, of course, but I'm going to do this. It's not super hot because I only microwaved it for a minute. Stick these in here. It smells good because of the vanilla. Okay. And then we need enough liquid to get it going, but we want it to be basically a dough consistency because we're actually going to roll out a good chunk of this. So I often measure this, but I'm just going to go, it's 2 to 4 tablespoons. I'm going to start with just about 2 tablespoons, okay? And then I'm going to process that and add oats and some liquid here until it's like sort of a dough consistency. So I'll show you that when I'm done. Okay, so here's the texture now. I did end up adding about 1 tablespoon, maybe more of the liquid, the date liquid. And what I've done now is I've torn a piece of parchment paper to fit this, a little bit over, of course. And then I've torn another similar size one because what I'm going to do is take about most of this, except leaving about 1.5 cups for the crumble on the top. And I'm just going to put it in a clump here on this paper, cover it with this, and then we're going to roll it to basically fit the pan. So I'll show you that when we're done. So we actually moved this onto the floor so that Ari could kind of get some good leverage here. And of course, we'll peel it back and kind of reshape it, but we try to get it really thin. I found you don't want a super thick crust on this, but it does taste really good to have it kind of baked on the bottom. So we're going to finish this up. Okay, so we've gotten it really close now. And what I tend to do is just kind of peel away. Then I found I don't love it when it goes up the sides. We've tried it, again, a lot of different ways. So I just kind of piece it together. It can be super imperfect. It doesn't matter. And I just kind of make it fit basically like that. Okay, so we'll just go around the edges and kind of try to even it out so that whenever you, whatever piece you eat, whatever crust you, or sorry, yeah, whatever piece you eat is going to have sort of an equal amount of crust. So we'll just even that out, but Ari, you did a great job of rolling it.
Great.
Okay, so we now pop this in the oven, 350 degrees for 10 minutes. Okay, so I have reserved that. I took it out of my food processor, the rest of the crust. It's actually even more than 1.5 cups, which is great. The crumble is really nice. So I'm going to measure out now 4 ounces of dates for like kind of a syrup that you could pour over top of the fruit just to make it extra sweet. Again, this is like really date heavy. You could certainly cut out or even eliminate a lot of this if you want to, if you need to for disease reversal purposes. I am actually going to reuse the date water just so it's extra sweet. We're going to do the same process of soaking the dates. It's going to be a little more specific now. So we're going to use 4 ounces of dates and exactly 1 cup of water. So actually we're really close to that already because this is going to need to have a certain amount of liquid to be syrupy. And I make this while the crust is baking because otherwise it thickens up really quickly and then it's sort of kind of funny to pour over top. Okay, these have been, this 4 ounces of dates, 1 cup of water, the date water, so it still had vanilla in it. And I'm even going to add 1 extra splash, just again for like really nice flavor, just a little tiny bit because it still had quite a lot in it. And then I'm just going to pour this into my food processor. I'm going to add, I forgot to mention this, sorry, 3 tablespoons of lemon. All right, I'm going to process this. Okay, so Ari is measuring in 1 cup of oats, and we're also going to add in, I'm going to use the new cinnamon, 1 more teaspoon of cinnamon. So we're just, yep, go ahead, Ari, you could throw that in. And when we blend this up, it'll be a nice thick syrup. If I find it's too thick, I'll just add a little bit more water to it. We just want it to be like pourable because we're going to pour this over top of the blueberries. So we're going to go ahead and process that. Okay, we are ready to assemble. We have our liquid syrupy stuff. We have our crumble. We have our baked crust, which is very hot right now. 10 minutes it's been pre-baked. And now I have all my blueberries. So the first thing that goes in is the blueberries. And if I make a half batch, this would be all the blueberries I would use. Is just 2 pounds worth, but I'm making a giant one. If I make a half batch, by the way, I don't think I said that, I use an 8x8 pan. That's what I used to make until that was gone in one sitting, because now that the boys are getting older, food goes very quickly in our house. Okay, so, and they just love this so much. And if I'm going to go through the trouble of making something this involved, we might as well make a big batch, right? It's a special affair. Oh, perfect. That fills it out really nicely. So it's almost full to the top, which is how we like it. So what I'm going to do now is take this syrup. Uh-oh, I should have taken that lid off first. I'm going to go rinse my hand first. You want to tell them what you're hoping to get for your birthday?
Oh, yeah, just a Lego rocket.
A Lego rocket. Artemis rocket,
yes.
Right? Yeah. It's the big ticket item. That will be your, that's the hope, right?
Yes.
We'll see when we open presents later. Okay, so here's our pourable syrup. It's like so messy.
So fill on your
I know.
glove.
I'm making quite the mess. And I just drizzle that. So it's like a really thick, kind of syrupy. I don't know. It's really neat.
It's like peanut butter.
Kind of does look like peanut butter a little bit. Yep. This is a nice big batch. I'm literally going to use my hands. Messy, messy, messy. Okay. There we go. And now we're just going to take all of this and try to evenly crumb it kind of over top. I'll show you that when we're ready to put it in the oven. All right, so here's what it looks like now. You can see the syrup, you can see the crumble. Like I said, we now have found we like to have a really, really thin crust on the bottom. And then to do this, like use most of the topping or most of that doughy stuff kind of as the crumble. What I'm going to do now is completely cover this in tin foil. And then I'm going to bake it at 350 for 40 minutes with the tin foil on. All right, so this has been baking for 40 minutes with this on. And I'm just going to take a peek. I think it's looking pretty good. So what we're going to do now is take this off. And now we bake it for an additional 20 minutes. So it's an hour total. And then the top will just kind of brown a little bit more. All right, so yes, it's definitely more liquidy with the frozen blueberries, but it turned out just fine. So you can see I sliced it just to get through the bottom crust, and this is what it looks like. So we have a couple of versions right here. Kind of falls apart, of course. Once it firms up in the fridge, I don't know if it will work as well with the frozen blueberries, but it actually like pretty much becomes sliceable and like holds a little more like a square. So hope you found this helpful. If you did, please consider liking, subscribing, so you can see other videos of how we like to keep things simple.